Hey guys, Tammy here. And in this video, I'm going to talk about when the court doesn't care. Now, I hear this complaint a lot, particularly from clients who are a little bit further in, who aren't brand new to the process, who have had some of those disillusioned experiences in court. And they complain to me, the court just doesn't care. The court just doesn't care. Now, let me quickly remind you, if you like these videos, please hit like and also subscribe to the channel so you get notified when new videos are released. One of the things to understand is it's not really that the court doesn't care. I mean, the judge cares as a human being, but the judge's role is to be a lawyer, right? The judge's role is to be the judge, is to make decisions and to have legal analysis of your case according to the law. It's not their job to have empathy for or feel bad because one person's not parenting, not doing what they're supposed to do, or any of those kind of things. The big struggle that we have is parenting is a constitutional right. And I know that if you've been listening to me and Thomas for a while, you have heard us say this before. Parenting is a constitutional right. It's like our freedom of speech. It cannot just be ripped from us without some very good cause. I mean, obviously you lose your freedom of speech if you become incarcerated, right? Why do you lose it? Because whatever you did warranted them incarcerating you and therefore you losing your freedom of speech. So if a parent does something really egregious, like, they're sexually abusing their child, or they're driving drunk with their child, or they're doing things, then even at that point, they won't usually lose their parental rights, but they will have supervised visitation or some form of mechanism like that to ensure the child's safety, because the child also has a certain amount of rights. A lot of times I think that we go in front of the court and we see this as a competition with the other parent of who's the better parent. And that isn't what the court is there at all to decide. The bar is not the parent that's the better parent gets more parenting time, or the parent that's more involved gets more parenting time. The bar is, are you minimally adequate? Do you meet this level of where you're keeping the child safe and fed and housed and all that kind of thing? Because if you are, then you're meeting those minimum requirements and you have as much right to parenting as anybody else. The court's goal in all of this is to allow each parent to have autonomous parenting in their own world. Because let's face it, we're individuals, we're human beings, we all parent differently, right? I've seen other parents do things that I totally don't agree with as a parent, that I feel are child abuse, even sometimes the way I've seen other people do with their kids, but it's what that person believes is the best thing for their kids. I've even had situations where I've seen my own children parenting my grandchildren and not agree with how they're parenting. And, and that can be really tough and really challenging. But at the end of the day, the parent is the parent, and you don't get to override that. I don't get to override that whether I'm the grandparent or even whether I'm the court, unless the court feels like there's some sort of health, safety, and welfare issue. The court doesn't have some sort of magic wand that's just going to fix the jerkiness of the other parent. And I think a lot of times that's what we're wanting them to do. And so we start to feel like they don't care that the other parent is difficult. They don't care that the other parent is verbally and emotionally abusing the child. That's a big one that I hear. They don't care that the child doesn't want to go with the other parent. Those types of issues. And, it's not that they don't care that the child wants or doesn't want to go. It's that you have to understand from their perspective that a child below a certain age range, which is varies state to state, but generally 13, 14, 15 are the ages we start to see the child's opinion be more heavily weighted in most states. But if a child is under that, then the court says, you know what? This child doesn't have the emotional development and the logical development to understand why it's in their best interest to have a relationship with both of their parents, not just one. They may feel like they don't want to go to the parent that's the most disciplinary one, when in fact, that's good for them to be disciplined, but they don't like it. So then they say they don't want to go. That's the type of thing that it's very difficult for the court to discern those little nuanced things. And so it's not really that the court doesn't care what's happening. It's that the court can only control so many things. Going back to when we feel a parent is verbally or emotionally abusive, this comes up a lot, right? Especially with a narcissistic co-parent. Verbal and emotional abuse is big. And I went through it myself in my own marriage, and I saw my children go through it, during that marriage. And so I know that it's a real thing. I know that it exists. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I'm just saying that for the court, it becomes a factor of, okay, for some people, you barely raise your voice. That's yelling. For other people, you're screaming at the top of your lungs. That's when it becomes yelling. Again, all of this becomes somewhat subjective. And so at what threshold can the court decide, oh, yeah, this level decibel is verbal and emotional abuse, but this level decibel is not, right? You see how subjective that becomes and how that becomes so difficult, unless you have situations where you're doing something like getting a therapist involved. And then the therapist is saying, this child is suffering these consequences because of these behaviors in one of the parents' homes. That's when you start to have some leverage. And that's why we see things like guardian ad litems, custody evaluations, and those types of more expert opinions that are able to dig in and really figure out what's going on in the child custody situation. Because just hearing it from you or the other parent, the court doesn't really have any good way to discern what's truly happening. But understand, if you do start being sent to guardian ad litem and custody evaluators and all these things, guess what happens? Your costs go up, and they go up and up and up. And sometimes with high conflict personalities like narcissism, you get this very charismatic person who's really good at talking their way out of things. And so a lot of times you're better off to wait and keep your logs and keep your documentation and do what you can and wait for the real hard evidence to come out. Because my experience is it does. We just have fear that it won't, and we let that fear drive us. Keep this in mind the next time you're in front of your judge, and try to remember that it's not really that they don't care. It's that they don't really have a good tool, right? Thomas used to always say that using the court for these types of little issues that come up is like trying to kill a gnat with a sledgehammer. The court's a very blunt instrument, and it can only do so much. The court is not a precision instrument that can dig down into every last detail of what's going on in your case. And that's why when you have those issues, you end up with these experts, because the court is going to want to preserve everybody's parental rights and allow each parent to parent autonomously in their home, assuming that there's no health, safety, and welfare type of issues. So if you'd like to learn more about my coaching, please go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. And on that page, you can use the link to book a free strategy session with me. And I'd love to chat with you and learn more about your situation. I'll see you in the next video.